Grew up in the greater Cleveland area, then migrated to the East Cleveland area around 1976, and went to the Cleveland Public Schools earlier and then the East Cleveland Public Schools. And just as a young man growing up in the city, now having my own family, 3 children, ages 22, 20, and 18.
Okay.
And yes, 2 girls and 1 boy. Again, the son is the youngest. Married to Michelle Kathleen Stevens Jones for the past 23 years. And just
Tell me, you were saying that you grew up in what area again when you first was born?
when
Where
I
did your parents
was
live?
first born, I was in the 93rd area.
Okay.
Grew up on Raymond Avenue,
Okay.
there off of 93rd. And
10, you moved over to East
yes,
Cleveland?
yes.
And what prompted that move to East Cleveland?
Well, one of the things were perhaps the separation between my mom and dad, and then after being reared up with my mom and my sisters only, we moved. It was her decision to come to East Cleveland, and then we moved into the city in 1976 on Waldena Avenue, and we stayed there for, I think, probably was there a couple of years, or maybe 1 or 2 years, or a year and a half. And then we moved to Rosemont Avenue, where she raised all 6 of us there.
Wow, what a strong woman, huh?
Yes, she is.
Yeah. So do you, I mean, you were kind of small then, but do you know what was the attraction to come to East Cleveland period for her? Was it schools or just community? Did you ever hear any stories about that?
Well, there was a good support of friends and family, I believe, that she was close to, that encouraged her to move there, perhaps even for the school system at the time, and for just the community value of East Cleveland. Moving there and seeing the city thriving and seeing how things were, and the closeness of streets and your neighbors, and et cetera. When I was just a little lad, but I enjoyed the fact that we had moved to East Cleveland. It was a different scenery for me.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Give me the contrast for you. How did that compare you? And it sounds like you had family members already here in East Cleveland.
I would say my mom's friends, and we had cousins around the outskirts of East Cleveland, and relatives here and there. But I think it was maybe perhaps even her job, because she worked General Electric, so she probably was moving closer even to her job, the one down on Payne.
Mm-hmm.
But moving from Raymond Avenue, 93rd to East Cleveland, it was a difference. It was just a total different scenery, per se.
Why? What would describe that for me?
Well, it was more African American, more blacks. You discovered more black business owners. Just about everybody on the block, we call it, on Euclid Avenue, had businesses, and it was just a different feel. And then to the school system at the time, with the band and the various highlighters and all the arts and all the different things, the community festivals that were just a time of celebrating ethnicity and unity in the city. At the time, it was really like a good thing.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Thinking back, it was a fun time for you growing up here?
Oh yes, our young years in East Cleveland were fun. I don't think I think of the kids today, and they have to have a video or some sort of gadget in their hand to enjoy what they're doing. We had each other. So, if we had a football or basketball, we would, the park was always filled. Forest Hill Park was always visited and frequented. And just the community in and of itself, something that I think, miss today.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was, people were more apt to be neighborly at that time?
Oh,
would you
yes,
say?
yes. The neighbors pretty much knew everybody in the community.
Mm-hmm.
If someone walked down the street or came on your street or in your neighborhood, you pretty much knew who they were at that time. Mm-hmm.
So those were good years for you?
Those were good years. It were good foundational years that helped shape me and helped me appreciate the community of East Cleveland and, supporting the community. And even now, even though I live in Cleveland area, in the Mount Pleasant area, I'll come to East Cleveland and shop. I'll come buy my son a jacket or some jeans. I'll come here and support some of the business owners that I still know still hold businesses now. Sometimes I'll come and fill my tank up at Shell and Shaw, at the African American business owner there who's still there, and because it's just something that has been entrenched in me. Everybody's different, but in me it's been that way.
So where do you think did that kind of I guess you would call allegiance to businesses in your community, did that come from your mother? Did she teach that?
She taught that. Mm-hmm. She supported the businesses. She created relationships and taught us to respect all of the various people throughout the community. And then it came from the value even from church. I attended Starlight Baptist Church for many years under Pastor Small, and just being in Starlight with other teachers and politicians and business owners, and growing up, being a kid who were involved, I learned that value from that.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful. That.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think those kind of values are being passed on a lot today?
No, I don't think we do enough of it. We don't share the platform as much as we should. Mm-hmm. We kind of individualize and have one or two people who's out front, and we don't teach our children coming along to become a part of the process of community and of entrepreneurship and of just society and supporting one another. No, it's not being shared as much.
Yeah. I heard you say your mom worked at GE.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Did she retire from there?
Yes, she did.
So those were good years for her.
Those were good years for her, yes.
Employment.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And because she had 6 children, that was very important to have that kind of stability that she could care for her children. Were the families, the parents of your friends, did they have similar stability?
Yes, I think on our street, we pretty much everyone had good work ethics. Even we as children, I mean, we were encouraged to get jobs. I think I started working at age 13, and just, and all through high school, if it wasn't at KFC or at Forest Hill with East Cleveland Park, cleaning up the park or cleaning up the schools in the summer. There were the summer jobs that were very prevalent. Many people stayed on their jobs and are still there from those summer employments that were allowed during our younger years.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the elementary school that you went to?
Well, I started out at Woodland Hills in Cleveland, then I went to Superior,
yeah.
And then I went to Prospect.
Okay.
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And then you went to, was it Kirk Middle School?
Kirk Middle School, yeah.
How was it there?
Kirk was good. Kirk was that time when you're in the 7th and 8th grade and you're becoming teenagers, and it's that time where we're finding ourselves. And Kirk was a fun school, challenging school at the time where they really started telling you about education and the importance of it. And then you learned your gifts and talents and things of that sort.
Did you participate in any of the special activities?
Well, by the time I went to Shaw High, it was already known that I was artist. I was an artist. I was creative in designing and drawing. At that time, they all came and they asked me to be a part of the commercial arts school.
We're going to pause right there for a moment. So, Pastor Jones, you were known for your artwork?
Yes. As a young man, it was good to know that Shaw High School had the commercial art program, because that was one of the things that me and a lot of the young people would do in expressing ourselves through painting, drawing, illustration, and at the time it was graffiti, but it evolved into graphic design because we realized that that which was graffiti can actually become something that is a design that can last and even provide a career. And so by the time I got to Shanghai, it was amazing to see how the support group of the education system homed in on kids' strengths and weaknesses. And where I wasn't all that academic, it took me 2 or 3 more times to get what may have took someone one time, but I was always creative. I was always a thinker and trying to do things. So I had fun days at Kirk and then at Shaw, and a lot of people have done a lot of great things just coming out of the school system of East Cleveland.
So did you develop a career in graphic design?
I went to school for art. I started at Tri-C, and then I studied at the Cleveland Art Institute, and then I was focusing on graphic design and illustration and then art history as a minor. But then my calling overwhelmed me, and I ended up going into the ministry and just kind of devoting my full time to my biblical studies and training and whatnot. Ended up pastoring a church over in the Collinwood area for 10 years. And there it kind of just kept me focused on ministry. Now on my second church for 10 years. So pastoring in Cleveland now going on a little over 20 years in Cleveland.
My goodness. So when you said your calling came, describe that moment for us, or was it a sequence of events that led to that?
I think it's a one-time experience or knowledge of knowing your calling, but then it's a sequence because I found myself where I was in school doing my dream of art and you know, thinking of all the future things as and many others had in mind of where our careers and our abilities and our gifts would take us. I still was being pulled to witness, to talk, to teach, and to help, and to teach the Bible and whatnot, and preach and whatnot. And so I found myself I can remember at Tri-C Eastern Campus, we would take the classrooms that weren't being used and turn it into a Bible study. And I found myself being pulled and pulled. And then I finally confessed it to my pastor and let him know that I felt that God wanted me to minister. And from there, you know, he cradled me and guided me and tutored me into the areas I need to be in.
So you were a young man when that was happening then, right?
Yes, I was very young. I pastored my first church at my 22 years old or so. Yeah.
My goodness. So how did you get to that church? Did they seek you out?
Well, I ended up through just ministry, and one of the pastors who were there, he was ill, and I would go help out, and still thinking I want to do my art, and I don't want to be at that church. In fact, I tried to run from that and say, well, let me help you, but don't make me your pastor. I just want to minister and do those things that I've been called to do. But he ended up relocating, the pastor who was there, relocated to Alabama, and the church was without a pastor. So then they asked me, and a few months later, to be their pastor, and they actually did an official call. And so I ended up becoming the pastor, the 7th pastor of the Shepherd Inspirational Baptist Church then in Collinwood. And from there, just growing and with a young family. All my children was not born at the time, and me and Michelle were youngins, 22, 23, 24 years old, growing up in ministry. It was a growing process, but a learning process.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And so from there you moved on to your second church?
Yes.
How did that transition happen for you?
Mm-hmm. In 2003, the Grace Missionary Baptist Church extended the call for me to come and pastor them. And I went into those shoes, very historic shoes, with the late Dr. W.L. Boykins and late Dr. W.L. Boykins Jr., both senior and junior pastor. And I'm the 3rd pastor there. And I just kind of came in and back in the kind of same neighborhood. My mom said to me the other day, she said, you were born in 93rd area. You was raised here, and now you're back here ministering, and back in that same area. Wonderful Mount Pleasant area, wonderful church.
My goodness, it's surprising how our lives, the journeys of our lives, unfold for us.
Yes.
You know, so we did kind of talk about your earliest memories of East Cleveland. Do you think the city has changed since that time?
The city has changed.
What's contributed to that?
The city has changed, and I think all of us who are East Clevelanders and have kind of grew up in this community kind of put our 2 cents in on how we feel. I think it's changed politically. I think it's changed in a social aspect as it relates to neighborhood and family-oriented neighborhoods. And I think it's changed even in the school system, perhaps. So,
Can you give me an example of politically how it's changed for you? You know, just kind of observing now. You have. It sounds like you're a little bit distant from it, but you come back here because your heart is always here, huh?
Yes. Yes, I just think it's about administration and about people who have been in the community who literally care and have put the time into sharing and caring in the community. I think the community has changed as it relates to administration, as it relates to how it operates, so to speak. So it's just some of the things I've seen in East Cleveland, without getting into the news issues and all of the things that it's been kind of discouraging in that, you know, you don't see a city that has great potential to be ran by African Americans and intelligent, articulate people who can actually administrate and communicate and govern in such a way that would be effective for everybody. It just seemed to be so much disunity, and that's what disheartening is, the disunity that pervades in the community.
But you know, you see a lot of, even looking at the disunity from the administration, the political side of it, Euclid doesn't look like it used to, does it?
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't.
And some of the streets, they look very different.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think contributes? Sometimes there's layers to make that happen.
Yes.
What do you think?
When, in a sense, let me ask you, Euclid doesn't look the same as it relates to the physical or the actual business?
Yeah.
The actual, because there have been physical changes, upgrades and
Let's talk about all of it.
cameras, okay, and all of that. But in the sense of Euclid, yes, with the businesses, absolutely. With community and with what it once was, that luster has been kind of dulled, and it's not inviting to. I would say, if I had a young man or woman who wants to be an entrepreneur, and they say, "Well, I want to, provide something that would help the community and help me survive and provide for my family," is not inviting enough in that sense. I don't believe so.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So Euclid has changed physically then? Yes. Businesses have gone away?
Yeah, businesses seem to have kind of dwindled. And in my earlier years of appreciating the African American businesses and that aspect of things, yes, it's kind of far and wide between as it relates to businesses.
So what do you think contributed to it?
I think it was, and I think it may be a national epidemic, but then more systemic in East Cleveland, as it relates to economy, as it relates to morality, as it relates to family. I believe that it's been a downward spiral in the sense of the lack of education and support, and the lack of proper communication and in the community. I just think everyone kind of went for themselves and not so much for each other like it used to be. They used to say it take a village to raise a child. We don't even hear the statement anymore because everyone's kind of on their own.
So, how has race or racism impacted you personally, or do you think it has had an impact on the city's growth and development? So those are kind of two questions. I'm sorry, I ran them together. But while you were in Cleveland, in East Cleveland, did you experience anything from a racial perspective that might have contributed to the changes that we see?
Well, we've always known that.
Sorry for that pause. We were talking about race and racism. Do you think, have you experienced any episodes in your life that have directly resulted from maybe race or racism, and do you feel that that has played a part in the city's, I won't say decline, I'll just say changes that we see in the city?
I think we all know racism does exist in many forms, shapes, and I have experienced racism, though not to a level that I can say where I can say it's the reason for this or that occurring. I don't feel that. I feel that racism exists, but what happened on the higher levels of government in East Cleveland, I don't know about. But as growing up in East Cleveland, me as growing up in East Cleveland, we didn't experience a lot of racism. We didn't have a lot of negativity in that. It was just us. And so I've often taken a different twist on, don't blame someone else for something that you are not fulfilling yourself and you're not trying to do yourself. And oftentimes we've blamed it on things on racism. We blame whether there's a pothole in the street, or whether there's a child who don't have a book, and we blame it on racism. I think that it's not that's not the root cause of racism. I think, but it does exist, and we have experienced it in many forms, whether indirectly or directly. But East Cleveland, I don't think that's been the source of any negativity or any downward spiral in there.
As a black man, even outside of East Cleveland, have you experienced, has racism kind of intersected your life at any point? Or do you feel like things have just gone, or it didn't exist? It didn't, sometimes you can feel it, sometimes you can't.
Yeah, I've experienced racism. I've done a lot of traveling. A lot of my people are from Georgia and Tennessee. I've been frequent there many times, and I go places. I've heard racism. I've seen racism. I've experienced racism. But in my community, where everybody looks like me, I have not. That hasn't been the thing you wake up to and you go to bed with at night. We've worked on jobs and been in places where racism has occurred, and things of that sort. I've had experiences on a job when I was younger, with cracks and jokes, Watermelon Man or some things like that. And I've handled it. I've always handled it in such a way, using my mind and using communication to defeat it rather than my temper or attitude or anything.
That's good. So when you do that, do you address, it depends upon the situation, do you address them or do you just let it go by you?
Well, I'm not one not to address, but I do it in a certain way. I think, some things need addressing. Some things doesn't need addressing. Some things you can win out by just being who you are or being what you are and doing what you do. And there's some things you probably should communicate and address and deal with if it's a racism situation.
Would you say that being the student of God and taking the path in life you have, do you think that's influenced the way you respond to?
And it has. It has certainly scoped and shaped me as a young man studying the Bible, studying the Word, and meditating, going to Bible school, and praying. And it has definitely shaped me. A lot of my friends and guys I grew up with went down other paths, and I just believe that God spared me from going down that path when I made that choice to do His will, to follow Him. Not suspecting to be a minister, because I'd never thought of that, but when He spoke to me about ministry and it came into my spirit and came to my mind, and I began to do it, other doors opened, and it taught me, and I've reached back and helped others who have kind of fell in by the way, and been able to help them out.
So, these are very similar questions, but how do you think inequality has maybe impacted East Cleveland? How do you feel inequality? Maybe you as a person, or even East Cleveland as a city. Do you think that has had any bearing on changes that we see?
Inequality, I think is not seeing what could be or would have been the roots of inequality that affect East Cleveland, such as perhaps in resources or finances or resources, perhaps in home programs, and perhaps and I always mention education because that's always a challenge. Inequality could have exist. I haven't been in that room to see that I had to kind of deal with that. But I believe that at some point it becomes a problem for any community, and it would be a problem for any community.
Have you, in your years here, or even as you've been separated from the city and living in another community, have you seen the city fight for something? Have they had to really band together and stand for something?
Well, they did a good job. The city, the mayor, council, and the clergy, the ministers pulled together at the Hearing Road issue, when Hearing Road was going to close, and when it was just kind of noise that they were going to close. It was a fight like, no, we're not allowing y'all to close these doors. And it was a coming together and a communicating and an understanding of how services would be provided, people would be safe, emergency situations was going to be handled. I think the city did well in voicing and sharing their aches and pains there. Of course, the hospital was closed, tore down, and other resources given. But I saw unity there, and yes. Mm-hmm.
Did you weigh in on that, even though you weren't here?
Yes, I've always been still a part of East Cleveland. In fact, I'm a member of the East Cleveland Concerned Pastors for Progress, and I still come and I'm a part of, the processes of even when there's people being elected, they come before us and talk and share, and I've always been a part of
That's
that.
good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like East Cleveland is always in your heart,
Mm-hmm.
and you do make a point to stay connected to it.
Yes.
What about before then? I can think back on several things that might have been here in years past that have gone away. Do you think the community stood up as strongly then as they did over here in Road, or was that a really focal point of community togetherness?
I think that's just one of the most recent, but it's been other things that different groups in East Cleveland or different people in East Cleveland have stood up for, and I think they for the most part know how to rally around a cause and try to promote their their opinion and growth.
When your mother for GE, did you know of other families in the community whose parents worked there as well?
Not a lot, no,
Not a lot.
no,
Not a
no.
lot of East Clevelanders worked there
Well,
that you
I'm
know of.
not sure,
That you
but
know
I think there were, but I was, I was a little younger,
of. Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. Around the time I went off and was married, that department was actually closing, and a lot of people were losing their jobs to GE when GE was outsourced
Oh,
and went out of the country with those particular jobs. Um, so there was quite a few who were laid off and was early retired. Yes.
that was painful.
Yes.
How did your mother feel about that? What did she talk about that at the house?
She's shared about it. It's been a transition for her, but she's a tough lady, and she's always handled life with stride. And but it was a transition because she was a loyal worker, faithful type of worker, and as were many others who had to, lose that particular job in life.
Yeah. So, fortunately, it didn't totally close shop like here in hospital, but when that department went overseas, it did displaced a lot of people as well. I
Yes.
hear you saying.
Hmm.
East Cleveland has had a lot of ups and downs, like most places have.
Hmm.
What do you consider one of their strengths to be?
I think East Cleveland have a lot of strengths. Number one, the city in and of itself is a beautiful city. It has that history. It has that foundation. A lot of big homes that you will never see ever again built. The quality, the stuff that was put into them, and some of them which have been renovated or hopefully will be renovated. Of course, Shaw High, that's strength, the marching band, and they're worldwide, world known.
Well,
And
how did that make you feel when you heard they were on their way to China, right?
yes, yes, that was, I kind of had this feeling like, oh, that's nothing for them. They can handle that because they're actually that good,
Yeah.
and they've always had that program to help young minds, young children in that area of music and dance and in band. I was a part of the Shaw High Choir when I was there, and we traveled to all the southern colleges, and we sung at the Epcot Center in Florida and all of that down, and went to Disney World as our climax and trip. It was a wonderful time for us at the time to be able to afford to go, and it was affordable for us to go and then to sing at Central State, Kentucky State, and all Georgia, and went to all those various colleges. That was awesome. Tuskegee, it was just a great experience.
Wow, that's when I'm not from East Cleveland, but when I saw Shaw High School they were on their way to China. I felt a sense of pride just well up in me.
Yes, yes.
It was, so I can only imagine if you were an alum.
Yes.
Tell me about the alumni organization. You were saying that you do come back
Yes.
and participate with them?
Yes, I think that's a great thing. Every year, right around Labor Day, the alumni come together, and at one time, the various years classes would have their own thing. And now they have a unified thing where if you just went to Shaw, you come back, and they celebrate up in the park and have different venues and different things that happen. Of course, I can't make it to all of them, but a lot of times I'm on to pray or to share at the different settings, and it's a great thing, and it has really sparked a resurgence of joy and remembrance of our city. Mm-hmm.
And did you say that some of the activity comes to your church as well?
Yes, we've had 8 o'clock early morning worships during the alumni weekend, especially for class of 1986. And we've had other ministers come who are now ministering in other cities like Atlanta and Carolina, and others who have went off, and quite a bit of ministers have come through Shaw and come through ministry of the various churches of East Cleveland, which East Cleveland is rich in many denominations and churches and historical churches.
So now, with you pastoring Grace Missionary Baptist Church and then having a foundation at Starlight, do you join together at some point and bring your congregations together?
Yes, absolutely. Every year, first Sunday in October,
Oh, you do?
we're at Starlight, and Dad Small always comes by for me on Father's Day, and it's always a time when he comes to Grace, and then we bring the church over in October, bring the choir, and it's like coming home, and it's always a joy to be at Starlight.
And then you see people in the congregation still?
Yes.
Remember you from when you were little?
Yes, when we were all young, and now we're a little older. But it's a joy seeing them. Many we've grown up with, many who have went to various areas of life and come back. Some have went and stayed, and it's just always. When you come to East Cleveland, it's like a little Africa, I call it. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that would be one of the strengths. Then, as I would agree with you that the people,
Yes.
What are some of the landmarks that really come to mind for you that really define East Cleveland and sets it apart?
Well, we know we always have been proud of the Forest Hill Park area, and the Heritage Middle School, which was the old Kirk School was a monument. The old Shaw High was a monument to us, though they've been now renovated and updated. Those were places of just a landmark. Even the little shopping plaza area where many of us would go and shop and just enjoy our time there in East Cleveland. And so many different areas down off of Hayden under the bridge by the school, Roselle, I believe, area, the little park in that area, the Eddie Road area. It's so many places that have just been landmark, and not to mention Windermere Rapid Station now, Stokes Station, just landmarks for us, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You can see those. So, as a newcomer to just discovering the city, I see that there's different sections, but would you, from your comments, it seems like you were all over the city, in all the sections.
Yeah.
Was it typical?
That was typical. Typical for us to know someone on Grassmere, to know someone all the way over on Beersford, someone on First Street, to hang out with someone up the hill on Caledonia, the East Cleveland part, if there still is an East Cleveland part.
Mm-hmm.
It was typical for us to know the city, to really, spend a lot of time riding our bikes. And I remember we would walk all the way down to Angela Mia's Pizza with a pizza and walk all the way back home. We done ate the pizza. And just the city was, at the time, that's what afforded us.
So it wasn't that separatism?
No, it was no separatism.
You didn't experience that. That's good. That's really good. What do you see that institutions, surrounding institutions, have they impacted the city of East Cleveland in any special way, positively or negatively?
Okay.
Okay.
The surrounding institutions, such as medical institutions and University Circle. Yes, I think there's a new Stephanie Tubbs institution for medical on Euclid, and I think that's a positive impact. And certainly the University Circle, all of that whole territory with Lakeview Cemetery, and then the right there by the free clinic on down to University, and what they're doing at the bottom of the hill, Little Italy. All of that is making for a wonderful entrance into East Cleveland, and I think it impacts and creates a positive venue for perhaps businesses to be enlightened to come in. And yes, I think the surrounding institutions are making a positive impact on it.
Did you go to any of the activities in University Circle growing up?
We always went down in that area, whether we were going to the fruit and vegetable stand there, or we were, but no, for the most part, the YMCA was open to us. So I remember Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at the Y. And if you were good on Saturday, you got to play in the game, and Coach Shivers would let you in the game. Then boxing with East Cleveland Powell, I shared in my young years there with Johnny Duncan, and this East Cleveland Civic Center was new then, and we had the boxing ring, and I believe they're still there, and that was a venue. Along with your studies, you were able to go and do other things that helped you become a well-rounded youth, and especially being more physically active, swimming, basketball, boxing, skating, and all the different things that we were able to do to
Where
keep
did
us
you
physical.
skate?
Well, we skated out Euclid, but we would just those were the things we would do at East Cleveland in packs. So it wasn't a thing where a child went on his own with his brother or sister. We would go in droves and do things, and it was just. And then even at the Civic Center, I believe East Cleveland Civic Center at the time allowed us to skate, and there was skating going on in there.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
I think I heard something about a bowling alley at one time.
Oh yes, the bowling alley, right off of Euclid, corner of Rosemont. That was one of the joys after school, going there and playing the video games and watching the elders bowl. Of course, we couldn't afford to bowl at the time, but then we got older, we began to bowl. And then the grocery market, A&P, Mr. Rogers Grocery, and I believe he's African American owned.
Yeah.
And watching him as he was kind to so many, and he allowed me to stand there and solicit to carry folks' bags to their car.
Did you do that?
Yes, I did that with joy.
So you earned a little extra
Yeah.
change for yourself.
Yes,
Oh my goodness.
absolutely.
So there was a lot of life here. So
Mhm.
Coach Shivers, was that basketball?
Yeah, that's basketball
So
at the
you
East Cleveland
played
Y.
too?
Yes, yes,
Did you?
yes.
And so that was at the Civic Center?
Now the East Cleveland Y was Coach Shivers, and the Civic Center was Johnny Duncan, the boxing, and I boxed for East Cleveland for 9.
Boxed?
Yes, yes.
Did you?
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of things that engaged you in
Yes.
your developmental years. You boxed at the Civic Center
Mm-hmm.
and played basketball at the Y
Yeah. Did art at Shaw.
and did art at Shaw.
Yeah. I was a photographer for the 1986 school book, and I did all the. And at that time, you took the picture, and you had to take the picture and develop it. I think my phone. Oh, it's over there.
Now, how do you feel about, all of that richness that you had growing up? So I understand that the Y isn't here anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's swimming pools here anymore.
No.
And there's a lot of homes that are blighted nowadays. So
Yes.
it looks like the city's taken a hit, would you say, in a way?
Yes.
And what do you think? There's some rebuilding that needs to be done here.
Yes. And I think it's all across our nation, of course. You go in many communities. But the swimming, let's start there. I could not graduate high school until I passed swimming. Swimming was not my thing. I had passed everything. All I had to do was jump in the deep and swim for 3 feet to pass swimming. And it took me, and I thank God for the swim instructor who stayed after school and stood at the side of the pool and said, "I'm not moving until you jump in this deep." And so as a young kid, we play around, and I was thrown in the deep when I was younger, so I had a phobia. Now I swim fine, and my son and I, we go swimming all the time. But just to think that I would not have graduated high school if I didn't learn swimming, and that was a part of the curriculum of a school is an awesome thing.
So
Hmm.
how do you think they could rebuild the school and not put a pool?
I can't fathom what would be the proper explanation. That's another example of the community rallying together, and most of us did not know the pool wasn't there until after the school was built. So we was not involved with and we could have perhaps been more involved with the listening to the process of the architecture and the construction. But when we found out there was no pool there, it was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking. My daughter Camille went to Shaw, and I asked her, I said, when you taking swimming? She said, there's no pool there, Dad. And she did track a little bit, and then she transferred to another school because we moved across town. But to know that the pool wasn't there, that was pretty disheartening.
So would you consider that an inequality?
I would, because it's to have something that's been there that provided structure, provided Saturday afternoons where children could go and have some outlet physically. What I'm concerned about is what children are not doing physically. They're not getting into things where they can be physical, and it's more of a mental sitting, playing, and whatnot. I think that was an inequality. Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I just wonder how it is that the community, did they have a lot of street clubs that you knew of when you were living here?
I do believe there were street clubs. I believe we had a street club. I was younger, wasn't more involved with that, but I remember growing up with street clubs and with people who were involved with a lot of the moving and shaking in town.
And so I would think that as the city strengthens itself,
Mm-hmm.
would that be an area that you think could have a good impact on the things that are to come?
Yes, absolutely.
So what do you envision for the city, for the future of East Cleveland? What major issues do you think need to be addressed?
Well, I envision that the city, once it come through the recovery of the home situation of blighted homes and boarded homes and abandoned homes, and as it deals with that safety issue of homes and buildings, as it is addressing and tackling and rebuilding homes. And I think that's the key, is our homes and our education system being of such that it becomes welcoming. A lot of the elders are still left in the city, and security and safety is always a concern for our elders. A lot of the children have moved on and have their own families, careers, and some have even relocated. So looking at that area and then the administration, whatever kinks they need to iron out there, and proper budgeting and proper financing and those type of things. Certainly those people who are able and capable to do that need to just do the best job they can do in handling that.
You know, when you think of a city that has gone through a transition, even from a spiritual perspective, you always like to think that there's a brighter day.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back on the time that you had here, do you see it coming?
I'm being optimistic about it. I'm praying that it come, and I would love to see that it happen. Though everything, it's going to take something. It's going to take a lot of resources. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of trust and faith in the system, trust and faith in the administration, trust and faith in all of the areas of the city. in order to bring about a positive change and positive in people's thinking and as it relates to change.
So your pastoral prescription would be, where would they start?
Well,
If you, because you're active in the concerned pastors of East Cleveland, where is it that, where's the starting point, or is there any one particular starting point?
well, one of the things is through education and economics. One of the parts of the East Cleveland Concerned Pastors for Progress was not just spiritual, to provide prayer and support and moral support in bringing the various diversities of religion together in the city, but also to deal with economics, to support and to create scholarship for kids and things. And they've done a good job. We've done a good job at doing that. I'm president of the Baptist Pastors Council of Cleveland, which is a larger group, over 120 pastors, and we do that in Cleveland. But the thing is, in looking at the city, where do we start? We just got to start one family at a time. It needs to be a process that everyone can be a part of, and not be. They need to be at the table. Everyone needs to be at the table to make the change happen in East Cleveland.
So if you had your opportunity to say that you would like to see new life come here in terms of businesses, what type of businesses would you like to see? What's the next one?
Well, I used to joke and say, pretty soon we won't even be cooking for ourselves. And now that joke isn't that funny. We have a lots of mama's chicken, daddy's barbecue, salads, cuisine, talented cooks, and not enough venues for us to even eat our own cooking or our own restaurants. I've always envisioned East Cleveland having a restaurant that everybody could come to that looks like us, that is us. And there's a few on a smaller venue, but that's one area. Okay. That's the one in the room, the bedroom now.
Don't worry about it, Hank. It's not going to ring that many more times.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Oh, we still recording.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, done.
Okay. You got a lot of editing to do. Well, just really businesses, we buy clothes. And then to see a lot of the things that products and things that we use and utilize continue to be supported in our city. Silverman's is a great store, been around and supporting and with all of the things that a person would need for home and for self and whatnot. Just, other things. Something can be created out of East Cleveland and actually make a business. There's got to be something. We need to recreate ourselves.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
We need to recreate ourselves because, I'm going to just say on record that I'm requesting that you take that back to the concerned pastors to just start thinking about what kinds of businesses should come here. And I say that because I hear people worried about gentrification.
Mm-hmm.
And gentrification means that other people are going to move in and take over our community, but I don't think that can happen if everybody is at the table, like you say, and that we integrate it properly.
That's right.
So I would ask that maybe that might be something that the concerned pastors might look at, how to integrate the city with new life and what that might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something that I will take back. It's important that we talk about that, and that's something worthy of talking about because
Has it come up or not yet?
I think it hasn't really technically come up. But there has been discussions around supporting businesses, encouraging businesses, or economic development in whatever form it would be in a positive sense. But yes, we need to discuss more on it.
I think that would be a good start in terms of maybe actively being involved in the turning around of things.
Mhm.
It sounds like that you're very active
Mhm.
in just community. Period. You've been
Yes.
active all along. So
Mhm.
with your children and with your ministry,
Mhm.
you are a very involved kind of person.
Yes.
And we certainly do appreciate the contributions that you're making to society overall.
Mhm.
And I think coming back to East Cleveland and giving that kind of a hand would really be appreciated.
Yes.
You know,
Mhm.
I'm sure.
Mhm.
Because, and I'm saying that because it leads into the last question: would you be prepared to participate in things of making East Cleveland a better place? But it sounds like you're already doing that with your
Yes.
concerned pastors,
Mhm.
and you know, I think that's an admirable thing that
Yes.
you know, spread yourself and share yourself
Mhm.
with a place that gave you a wonderful foundation, so that others can experience what you have experienced.
Yes.
You know, in terms of being in the city, if there's one thing that you could go out tomorrow and change, what would that one thing be?
Wow. Just one. So many things to change.
I too.
Wow. Um, I would change the employment. If I could help the employment be better. I believe there's good people that can't find good work, and finding them employment, finding them something that they can stay at work doing. A lot of people get in trouble and go down the wrong path because they don't have employment. The gangs and all that, sometimes have a good excuse because they say, well, there's nothing out there for me, so I'll go this route. But if they could have employment. The second thing I would change, would be the unity of the community, the coming to the table, so to speak, the involvement of families, parents, and in the schools and in the political processes and at the city council level. Those would be the things I would change.
How do you, this would be like, in addition to that second thing, what would be the first step of galvanizing that community that you would institute?
I'm be honest to say, I don't have a total answer for that, but the first step would be to, the goal is to meet the need and to listen for the need, to hear the needs of the community, to hear what's the need, and then be able to move progressively and systematically toward answering those needs, fulfilling those needs that are progressive for the community.
I think those are excellent answers, and if we appreciate you coming to share your interview with us.
Thank you.
But I
for
like
having
to
me.
think that we've made you think about some things too as you go away.
Yes, you did. Yes, you have. Yes, you have.
We appreciate your time.
Mhm.
I think we've covered a lot. Is there anything that you'd like to share else? Maybe a message to whomever might see these interviews, or to the next generation coming up. Is there something you want to say to them?
Well, the interview was excellent opportunity for me to share with you, and I just hope that the progress of our community will come back by way of hard work and by way of community involvement. And our churches are vitally important. That our churches become more socially active as well as spiritually galvanized and founded. But become more involved in the community and providing fathers for Young men don't have fathers, mothers for mothers, women don't have mothers. And those who are been incarcerated and they're coming back into the community, providing resources and support and just prayer and spiritual guidance for those who are going through the process of new chapters in life. And I always encourage our young people that it is not what you want to do over what you have to do. And if we do the have to do's first, we get to do some of the things we want to do. And never in my wildest imagination would I have thought I would be asked to be interviewed anywhere. And I've been blessed to be interviewed in various segments and areas from here to Nassau, Bahamas, where people have been interested in what I had to say. And so I'm just honored to be here and be a part of your study and your program and everything here. God bless you.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.